Off you go, Gary.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Thank Furlough. It's Friday yet again. I'm sorry, I'd forgotten how to say that as we weren't here last week, so I was sitting here waiting for something different to happen. But as always, I am looking at the lovely face of Jackie Mount, who's with us all the way from Kent. Morning, Jackie. Good afternoon, Jackie. Even how are things with you?
Hi, very well, thank you. It's weather is sort of mixture of clouds and rain with an awful lot of wind at the moment. So yeah, it's one of those days when you're not quite sure if you wait 5 minutes, another type of weather comes along. So no, we're fine, thank you.
Last week, as most of you will hopefully have appreciated, we weren't here, and I'm sure you missed us terribly. But if Alex can quickly put up a photograph of Team ICB, we actually had our first meeting for nearly 2 years. And we met people a couple of people for the first time. So there's the photograph, isn't that great? So that was us. We got together, not all of us. Some of us were on holiday, and we've got a few people that weren't available, etc. But yeah, that's me in the middle. Far left there, you see the beaming smile of Julius, and far left, you see the similarly beaming smile of Amy. Next to Amy there, holding the PQ award, because this was the first time we'd all seen the PQ award in its true form. That's Namisha, who's our latest recruit. She's doing really, really well. And just behind her is that's Anthony. And Anthony also has joined us since lockdown. So this was the first time he and Namisha had met the team, and likewise the team met Namisha. So I think you probably know everybody else, but if I go from over there, we've got Julius, then Kerry, then we've got Sumaya. Behind Sumaya, we've got Alison. Next to her, big tall guy at the back. Most of you remember, this time not wearing one or more ties. That's Peter. In front of him, we've got Agatha. Next to Peter is June. I'm sure you all know, like with the glass. In front of her, we've got Polly. Behind, with a beaming smile and the still long hair, is me. In front of me is Sobi. And next to me is Alex. Then we've got Jackie, obviously no introductions necessary. Then we have Lucy. And as we said, we've then got Anthony, Namisha, and Amy. So that was us. Thank you very much for that, Alex. We'll put that down now and let Jackie get on with her day. Still some things going on at the moment, and we put out an agenda on the notification. I think the last item is the one that's going to be the one that we're going to have quite a lot of discussion about, the taxation strategy. So whatever you do today, hang on for that last one, because we're going to need your help on a few things, but it's extremely important that we have your help on this. So fire away, Jackie.
Okay, thank you. Right, okay, I'm going to share my screen because it's always easier to do this with some notes for you, so you can go back and have a look at them again. So let's start with this one. Okay. Now, sorry, I'm just trying to get rid of some bits off my screen. Okay, so we're going to start. Quick couple of notices first. This was an interesting one that came up from the Pension Regulator this week. They have brought out some new guidance on their website for new employers and anyone who is actually studying payroll or who is new to payroll, just maybe perhaps qualified. And I think I would strongly advise anyone in this to have a watch of, look at some of this, because it's not particularly heavy going. And there is a link there to the Pensions Regulator website. Now, if this works, yes, if you click onto that, it's worthwhile working through this, because if you have a client who's an employer and is just taking on staff for the first time, this actually goes through in step by step exactly what those new employers need to do. And literally, you've got a series of questions. So if you're thinking of employing someone, you click on yes, and it should take you through. And then it literally takes you through what you need to do for the whole of employing staff and sorting out your pensions. So that's a useful one to do. As I say, anybody who's involved in payroll or anybody who's studying payroll or anything like that, worthwhile taking 5 or 10 minutes just to quickly go through that to advise yourself of what's going on, because that's fairly new. Now, this next couple of slides may not affect many of you, but I felt I needed to put it up because there are certain changes going on. This is all to do with input, not so much import VAT, but selling abroad. Now, I know a lot of you have clients who sell into the EU, and there are still some queries about what's happening with VAT when you sell to the EU or you buy from the EU. And I have to say, when I went through this morning, when I was getting the slides ready, some of the information is still confusing me, to be perfectly honest, on the website. And I've spent a lot of time looking at this. So anyone who's new into this might, you know, really struggle with this. So remember, if you have clients who are selling into the EU, then import VAT must be charged at the VAT charged in the country of destination. And that happens from the very first sale that you make into Europe, which means that you're charging different levels of VAT for different clients in different countries. Now, this is assuming that you do not have a place of supply within the EU and you're selling from within the EU. So if you're doing large amounts of this, then you'll probably have a hub in the EU, you'll be paying VAT and you know what you're going to be doing on that. So this is for individuals who either are selling maybe from their website into various different countries or selling small items into countries in the EU. Now, if the value of the goods is less than £135 or €150, this still means that you've got to register for VAT in one of the countries. Now, you can choose your country. You could choose Ireland, you could choose Germany, you could choose the Netherlands. You can choose your country and you register for VAT in that country and use what's called the Import One Stop Shop. Now, the Import One Stop Shop is for the small valued items that are valued at less than £135 or €150. If you're selling goods for more than that, there's a different system. It's the One Stop Shop, and it's a slightly different situation. So basically what you're doing then is you're recording all your sales and you are reporting a single VAT return to a single country, but with VAT at different levels, and you pay that country's VAT into that country's tax office, sorry, and then it all sorts itself out. Now, the bit that I'm still getting very confused about, my apologies to those of members who are in Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland falls within this scheme. Now, if you are importing around through Northern Ireland or selling goods from Northern Ireland into the EU, the same thing applies. You have to rely on using the one-stop shop. So if you're importing goods as well, and this is where I got very confused, so please forgive me, because what the note says is if you're importing goods into Northern Ireland, this falls into the scheme and HMRC must be notified of the IOSS number. The alternative, of course, is if you're simply selling to Northern Ireland, the UK VAT kicks in as well. So if you're involved in this, I'm sure you've already sorted this out, but I have to say, hand on heart, I'm really sorry, I'm still getting very confused about this. Remember, you can't register for the IOSS in the UK because the UK is not in Europe and it's not part of the scheme. But if you are registering for the IOSS, you must have an intermediary that's based in the EU to operate this for you. You cannot do it yourself. And there are companies that will offer this service in the UK. We've been talking to a number of them, and I know the one at the moment, I'm sure there may be others in the pipeline, but of course the one company that we've spoken to already that deals with this is Avalara. And there are others that I know are coming on board that have applied to ICB for recognition. So if you can't appoint somebody in the EU, then look at a company in the UK that can offer this service for you. Now, because EU VAT is charged on every sale to EU customers because there is no registration threshold, you might find that you're actually having to register for VAT in another country under the IOSS, but you're below the threshold for UK sales, so therefore you're not registered for UK VAT. Now, this is where it gets even more complicated. So this is basically if you are a UK company selling small items into the EU, I think, to be honest, the decision's got to be taken, as we've said before, still, as to whether it's even worth continuing with those sales, because the whole emphasis behind this is now getting so complicated that your clients may decide that it's actually not worth it. Now, if you are selling from Northern Ireland into the EU, then there is something called the Government Trader Support Service, which is useful, and you do need to use that because that's a free service and it will help you. And it's, if you just put that into the search engine on gov.uk, it will actually come up with the information. Now, you can sign up for regular HMRC email updates on all these changes, and that's where I get all this from. I've signed up for the email updates, and they're useful if you're involved in this because it does give you the information that you need. Okay. The only other one I've got on this import-export is customs declarations. Now, again, if you're not involved in this, switch off for 30 seconds. If you are, you probably know this anyway. From March 2023, and there is an awful lot going on in March 2023, I'll come back to that later. There's going to be a single service called the Customs Declaration Service for reporting customs declarations. Now, at the moment, the chief system, which is currently in operation, is going to be closed down. So it's a bit like our tax agent VAT at the moment. They're moving over from the old VAT mainframe into the new system. The customs declaration is going to be doing exactly the same. And there are some dates there if you're involved in that when the declarations will close on one and move across into another one. So to say, if you're involved in that, you probably know, but it's worthwhile just pointing that out. So fortunately, that's all there is to do with import export. You'll be very pleased to know. So I'll have a look at our familiar Friday furlough friends, CJRS and the self-employment grants, see what's happening. I hope you can see that's come up quite small because there's an awful lot on this screen. Remember, from the 1st of August, that was last week, you now, employers now have to contribute 20% of the furloughed wage and can only claim 60% back. They still have to pay the furloughed employer 80% of their normal wages, but they can only reclaim 60% back. Now, if you've been watching the news this week, there have been quite a few articles going around of various programs about the effect that this may have on jobs. Now, if you or your clients are in an area where they're still badly affected for trade, or they're not able to open because in the pandemic they had to close because half the staff were being pinged and couldn't come to work, and they couldn't afford to open with the rest of the staff because they didn't have sufficient staff in. They're now having to pay 20% of the wages, and this is going to be quite a heavy business expense for them because don't forget they're already paying NICs and pension contributions on that. And the word was out this week that, really this might be the start of a whole lot of redundancies coming up, or businesses that are going to have to close down. So we have got to watch this very carefully. We were aware that this was going to happen. So it's just a question of watching this space and making sure that, you get your calculations correct. Now, the 5th SEISS grant is now open for claims. This is really what I wanted to have a look at. Now, we went through this in detail last week or week before last. Applicants will need their turnover figures for 21, sorry, that should say as well as 2021 and 1920 and also 1819. Now, I went through the reasons for that because if 1 year was a bad year for whatever reason, you can go back to 1819. Now, if your client started trading during the 1920 tax year, I think that should say 1920 tax year, they may or may not need those comparison figures. Remember, the grant is going to be either 30 or 80% of 3 months of average profits. It depends on the reduction of the income. Now, if these individuals were self-employed with no previous trading, so they started trading in the last week, they should, if they're eligible, get the 80% of the grant rather than 30%, because this 30% is only if their reduction is at less than 30% turnover over the year. Now, I did have this question 2 weeks ago, and I can confirm now that although the 5th SEISS grant covers 5 months, that's May to September, the government are only paying 3 months of profit. So you're actually getting less over this period than we've done before. Now, don't forget, under the CJRS, they're still getting the monthly claim up to the 30th of September. But for the SEISS grant, it's only 3 months and it has to cover the full 5 months of that period. So on a pro rata basis, you're getting less than you have done before anyway, even without the reduction if you're getting the 80% of profits. It's going to be reduced because it's over a longer period of time. Now, I would strongly advise anybody to watch this video. Now, I'm going to, what I've done is on our website, under the resources page on our website, on our COVID hub, I have actually updated that with all of this information today. So even though we can't put these slides up, all of this information is actually on the thing. And I think if I go into, oh no, not that one, this one. Sorry, I don't know whether that's covering up my screen. Let me get rid of that. This is the COVID hub on our website. So we're into here, we're into resources, COVID-19. And if you click on self-employment income support scheme, everything that I'm talking about, I have copied into here. And the link is here to that video. So if I click on that link, what it will do is it will take you into this particular video. Now, I would strongly suggest that anyone who's got clients that are claiming for the 5th grant, you do watch this video. I watched it this morning. It takes you through every single screen, and it was very, very useful. And it does answer an awful lot of questions that I think might come up about this and have come up over the past couple of weeks. I will say you do have to bear with the presenter because he does speak very slowly, and it's not the most exciting of voices I've heard on a presentation. And I'm wondering if that's to do with the fact that he has quite a strong regional accent, and it may be to make sure everybody can understand him. But it's certainly worth watching that particular video if you're at all involved in this, because it takes you through all the screens and what your clients are going to have to do. Because don't forget, your clients have got to do this, not you. So basically, where am I? CJRS from current slide. Right. So basically, one of the things that happens when you work through that is that you actually get details of all the previous grants paid up. So once your clients have signed in and put in their government gateway details and everything else and identified themselves, they will actually get the details of all the grants that they've received so far. So you can use that, that they will be able to see that. Now, as we've said before, there is a screen whereby they have to make some declarations. Now, they have to declare that they are still self-employed and still trading this year, unless they are temporarily closed down for COVID reasons. And also, and I know somebody raised this 2 weeks ago when we were talking about this, they have to make a declaration that the profits for the period May to September, and we're back to profits now, not turnover, you note, will be badly affected due to COVID. Now, if obviously you say at this stage, no, I'm no longer self-employed, or I don't, my profits are back where they were and I'm all hunky-dory, thank you very much, it will immediately cut you out of the system and say you're not eligible for the 5th grant. However, assuming that the profits have gone down, you will go through, you follow this through, and it will take you through to giving details for the grants. Now, also, HMRC will check this information, because at some stage, if you get to the end and you're doing the current year's self-assessment tax return and the trading and the profits have actually seemed to be gone up over the year, it may very well be that you'll have to justify that 5-month period to see if they can still keep the grant or whether the grant's going to have to be repaid. So looking much more complex this time, and we've got the details now of what they're actually going to ask. Now, there are some additional questions if they have foreign income. They have to give details of foreign income. First time I've seen this. And also, I think when I saw on there, it's got to be something that there's about 50% UK self-employment to foreign income. So again, if you've got lots of foreign income, you may not be eligible. And if you have made an amendment, or if you on their behalf have made an amendment to their last tax return since the 3rd of March, they will go back and they will review the grant, and there may be a delay in that going through. Now, at the end of the process, by the time you sign off and you click on the last buttons, it will actually tell you the amount of grant that you're eligible to get. Now, this, of course, is based on the reduction on profits. You have to give your turnover figures. You have to make all these declarations, and then it will tell you exactly how much. And that's going to be a maximum of either £2,500 if you're on the 80% grant, and I can't remember what it is if you're on the 30% grant, obviously prorated down on that figure. Now, please be aware of scams. There are a lot of emails, telephone calls coming out. If people know you're self-employed, there are calls going out, there are emails going out saying, can you check, we want to check your SEISS figures, please give us this information. Please be aware of scams, and if you're in doubt, ring HMRC, because there is a prevalence of this. Now, what HMRC is saying is, please be very careful, as all our members will be, when you're submitting the 2021 tax return, please be careful with how you report previous claims. That's claims 1, 2, and 3, because there are an awful lot that have been submitted with errors. Now, I'm assuming that these tax returns that have been made by the individuals are not by their tax, not by someone with a tax agent, and certainly not an ICB tax agent. But there are a lot of tax returns that are going in with errors, and of course, it's causing all sorts of havoc at the moment. Now, if your client started trading in 2019 to 20, and they have claimed the 4th SEISS grant, HMRC are contacting them to confirm identity and business activity. So there are a lot of additional questions. I've mentioned this before. This is just a reminder. And if your clients decide they're going to ignore this until they have answered those questions, HMRC will not process their 5th grant. So if HMRC feel there is a query, or if they're fairly newly self-employed and they want to follow up on the figures, they're going to be checking figures. So again, you might need to start giving some figures to your customers and making sure that they know exactly what they earned and what their ID is and that sort of thing. And as I said, what I've done this morning is I've put all of this is now on our COVID hub on the website, including the link to the video. So if you want to have a look at that or look at it in greater detail, follow the link off our website, and it's there for you to watch that video. And as I say, it does take you through step by step. So that's quite good. Now, some other updates. This one is a humdinger. Proposed change of basis dates. Now, again, this is useful for anyone who is currently doing self-assessment returns. And again, I've mentioned this previously, but I've got a lot more information on it now. Quick introduction to those that don't know, what is the basis dates? Well, if you're the basis dates for tax for your clients is the accounting year. So if your accounting year runs from the 1st of April to the 31st of March, or from the 6th of April to the 5th of April, is any dates in between, your accounting year matches the tax year. And let's face it, most of us will probably do 1st of April to 31st of March, because that's how the software works in calendar months. That's absolutely fine. Your basis dates match the tax year, and everything is straightforward because you do your tax return for the year. There's no hold, no hangovers, no overlap relief or anything. However, if for some incomparable reason your clients have a different accounting year, let's say their accounting year runs from the 1st of January to the 31st of December, or they started trading on the 1st of April or the 1st of June, and they decide to have an accounting year end the 30th of October, it makes your life much harder, because when you start doing the self-assessment tax returns, if the basis dates do not match the tax year, then there are 3 different types of dates that you need to be able to work out. So for the first 3 years, you are reporting possibly 3 completely different sets of dates for your first 3 tax returns. And what happens is, over that period, if they've made a profit, there will be a double payment of tax, which is called rollover tax, which is rolled over in the self-assessment tax return each year until the business closes, when it can be claimed back against the final year of trading. Now, of course, there are companies who've been going for years and they're still carrying forward this first 6 months of tax that they might have paid as a duplication. Now, back in 2014, the Office for Tax Simplification decided this was far too complicated. And I have to say I agree with them. And now HMRC are starting to really take this on board and to look at it. Now, we've just submitted a response to a consultation called the it's the tax administration system. So it's bringing it into the 21st century. And one of the points in that was to look at simplifying the dates that on which you're taxed. Now, this week, we've picked up a new consultation on this, and there is some legislation that's proposed in the new finance bill. There's a consultation that's due in by the end of this month, to which we will obviously make a response on how we think this is going to be simplified. And basically what the legislation is proposing is that regardless of your accounting year, you could keep it 1st of December to 1st of January to December, or 1st of April to 31st of March, you will be taxed on the income less expenses, so your profits, within one fiscal tax year. So April to March, 6th of April to the 5th of April, regardless of your year end. And this is coming in March 2023, which coincidentally is the date that MTD for ITSA comes into play. Interesting that they've chosen the same date. And during the previous year, there's going to be a catch-up where anyone who is carrying forward a rollover tax that's being paid will be able to reclaim that back against their 22-23 tax bill. Now, I haven't got this down in notes particularly, and I don't think, I think that's, sorry. I haven't put anything down in writing because I'm going to be covering this in detail. As soon as we know what the definite legislation is, I will be covering this in a technical Tuesday. So for anyone who's interested in that, it won't be for a while yet because we haven't got the absolute detail. And I want to wait until we know it's not going to change. So that will come about at some stage. So if you're involved in tax, or if you're in the process of studying for your SAT exam, it would be worthwhile having a look at this in detail, because hopefully it will make everything a whole lot easier once we get to March 2023. So that's the big change that's coming up in self-assessment. Now, as Garry said, tax agent. Now, I just want to ask a question. If anybody is still having issues with signing up for their agent services account. Now, we have one member who we do have an issue with, whereby HMRC are trying to check her membership. We know she's a perfectly valid bona fide member, but actually we've got a problem with this going through. Verna very kindly spoke to the member yesterday. They took it through the whole system on HMRC with Verna. She got to the point where she's not a member. So we don't know what's gone wrong, and we're trying to sort that out. But I would be interested, if anybody else is having this issue, please do get in touch with us if you've got any problems with registering for tax agent, and we will pick this up, because I want to make sure, for some reason there is a glitch with HMRC coming back to us, and I'm not quite sure what. So we're trying to sort that out.
Yeah, I think we're trying to find who has taken over from the original team that we used to work with, because we had passwords and all sorts of things, so that we knew it was HMRC asking. They knew it was us giving them the proper information. That seems to have disappeared with changes in personnel. But yeah, I understand it. We've got Mike Jardine and the AML team working on this as well to try and get that sorted. Yeah. So as soon as we know something, we can know.
It would be useful to see if this is a sort of a more than an individual problem, I think. So we've got that sorted out. Hopefully we'll get that sorted out fairly quickly.
Yeah.
Now, the other one on the tax agent that's cropped up that I'm involved in at the moment is under MTD for ITSA. Now, again, I think Garry and I have mentioned this before. At the moment, you can register as a tax agent for one of what HMRC term heads of duty. So that's self-assessment, VAT, PAYE, all of those. But under the HMRC system, you can only have a single tax agent registered for a single head of duty. And with VAT and PAYE, it's not so bad. It's not such a problem, because only one person is making a VAT return and only one person's doing the RTI. However, when we get into MTD for ITSA, we have a problem that Garry and I recognised 5 years ago, and we've been pushing this through, as have all the other professional bodies. that there is a current issue with those of our members who are going to be doing the quarterly uploads, but not the year end, because we've got an issue with who is going to be the tax agent for that. And Garry, I don't know whether you want to come in at this point or not, or whether we just leave it at that and come back at a later stage.
Yeah, no, I think it's worth giving people a bit more detail. The truth of the matter is we're not quite sure how many of you as our members this will affect. And what we will be doing next week at some stage is sending out a questionnaire, because we need to ask you how you work with your clients, how many of you actually do everything yourself, because we know how many of you are qualified to do it by yourselves, but some of you may not be using that qualification. So we need to look at how many clients you've got and how many might be affected by this, because what it actually means is that if you pass on the work to an accountant, that accountant is probably going to be registered, and therefore the work that you do during the year, these new quarterly updates, etc., may also have to be done by that accountant, because they're the only one that's going to have the gateway, the link.
Yeah.
So this is quite important. Now, we believe that most of you do everything yourself, in which case this is great, because only you then can do it and you won't have your client running off and talking to anybody else. Great. But we don't actually know. So we will be sending out an in-depth questionnaire. Now, what I would ask is if you could help us by, I know you're busy, and I know you probably get lots and lots of questionnaires. I've had a ping within the last few minutes wanting to know what I think of something or other. But for ICB, this is vitally important so that we can represent you properly, because we don't want to kick up a fuss if it turns out actually there isn't a fuss, because you're already covered. But likewise, we don't want you suddenly to be told, well, actually, you can't do any of that anymore because my accountant has to deal with that. And we need to get it checked out. So you'll be getting a questionnaire. There'll be all sorts of questions in there. But if you can answer them as correctly as you possibly can, give us all the information. It's private, it's confidential. It doesn't, we're not doing anything with it other than trying to figure out what everybody does to make sure that our gut feeling of what happens and what you do is correct. Because we're being expected now to report to government and say, this is how it will affect us. Now, if millions of small businesses have suddenly got to start paying for an accountant to do their quarterly returns instead of a bookkeeper, the big news story as far as we're concerned is that people are going to have to pay lots of extra money, and that's going to be harmful to small businesses. But if actually this means that they will turn to bookkeepers to do all 4 of the returns, then actually that's good news. So we don't want to upset the apple cart, particularly when we don't know what we're doing, and we don't want to put our foot in it for you, but we want to be there and make sure that we get this right, because it could affect you and your livelihoods. It could affect the way you deal with your clients. So yeah, we've just got to get it right. So this is your benefit so that we can get this right. So please, when you get the questionnaire, open it, answer it as quickly as you can, because I mean, we've literally got days to get this information back to government in order to make a decision. Now, we have been told that if we get it wrong now, and people are barred from doing this, it's going to be at least 18 months before the government system can actually be turned around again. And now during that time, if you've lost clients, you're not going to win them back in 18 months' time. They're going to say, well, it's all right, I'm getting that done now. I don't need your help. So it's vitally important. And we'll be working on the questionnaire. We haven't written it yet. We will be writing it. We'll be getting out to you, as I say, next week. And please get it back to us as soon as you possibly can. And is that fair, Jackie?
Yeah, I think it's very fair, because we do need to get this information so we can fight on your behalf. But the other one that's going to probably may not be as part of that questionnaire, because there aren't as many businesses, is I have spoken to a couple of you who employ staff and who under their tax agent account have their members of staff who are allowed access to their account, but they've also got clients. And I know with one practice in particular, one member in particular, I won't mention her name, there is an issue with being able to allocate clients to certain tasks, and that you can and can't go that far. So we're also working on that, but that will probably come out separately to the main questionnaire, because that will affect far fewer of you than anyone who works for themselves.
I think our members are victims of their own success, in many ways, because 25 years ago, when we first started this, I think bookkeepers did what most people thought bookkeepers did, which was add up the columns and give somebody all of the results at the end. But it's moved on from there. We are now more professional. We cover more of the work. We get far more involved. And although some of our members are still what would have been thought as bookkeepers 25 years ago, they, I think, are in probably the minority. And we're quite happy for those of you who want to stay like that, that this is not a problem. We're not trying to wheedle you out or anything else, but we do need to look after those of you who have now become, you know, the equivalent of accountants, if you like, but for micro businesses and small businesses, because that you're doing all of the work and you're doing it in a very precise, cost-effective manner for small businesses. And that's really what we want to protect. So I think it's important that you realize why we're doing this. This is not just another, let's gather a bit of information or something like that. It is very, very important. And the other one, which we were going to send out some time ago, but we have been waiting for further guidance from government, was to find out your turnovers. Now, we did a survey for a small number of our members who we knew had got slightly larger businesses, so it didn't encompass everybody. And we got enough information for us to be able to fend off the government wanting to charge us fees under the SAR regime, so that's okay. But we do need to know what sort of turnover you have, so that will be probably incorporated into this questionnaire as well, so that we can start to take that. And then within the next couple of months, I'm hoping that you'll be able to just upload that information onto the AML online system, or if you don't have a practice license, onto the standard My ICB section, so that we can keep an eye on what's going on. Because we're constantly being asked about bookkeepers, and unfortunately governments have a predetermined idea in their head of what a bookkeeper is, and we need to really, really update them, make sure we know what we're talking about. But if we make a statement about you as bookkeepers and what you do, it will be tested. You know, they'll ask questions, or they'll look at tax returns and say, well, this is not what we think the average person who's listed as a bookkeeper looks like. So are your people different? Have you got the information wrong? So we've got to be accurate. And, you know, we're dealing with governments here, so they do have a lot of information to hand, but we can't access that. So we have to rely upon you to tell us what's going on out there. So you know, please help us as much as you possibly can.
Fabulous. Okay, let's hope we can get some information. Just a couple of quick, number one notice, anybody who is intending to do Companies House returns on tomorrow morning, their system is down for maintenance from 9 AM to 1 PM tomorrow. That came out this morning. And lastly, for all those parents stroke grandparents that are waiting on A-levels and GCSE results, they're out next week. I think it's A-levels Tuesday, GCSEs on Thursday. So good luck to everyone. I know I'm waiting on GCSE results for various grandchildren. So good luck with that one. And I think that's all I've got for you today. So
a few comments here. One from Claire Kendall to everyone. Fabulous. And a smiley face. Not quite sure what that. Oh, that was the photograph, perhaps. Susanna Whelan. Yeah, great photo. Paul Ingram says, can we share the HMR video with clients?
If it's HMRC, yes, it's open. Yeah, do.
Hopefully it confuses them totally and they have to come back to you and take your advice. So, you know.
Yeah, no, that's not confidential. It's completely, it's open to anyone, and it's aimed at anyone who wants to watch it. So hopefully the link should be fairly easy to see.
Claire Kendall says, changing basic dates going to upset clients. I have a plumber whose year end is the 30th of June. Guess he will have an extra 9 months on his tax bill for 22-23.
Well, yes and no, because if he's got some overlap from when he started, you see, if he started on the 1st of July, he will have done a July to April tax in year 1, and then he will have done July to June tax in year 2, and that duplicate tax will have been sitting in his account, not as a duplicate payment, so he will be able to claim that back. So the idea is that they claim all the double tax they pay, which will offset any additional, but he will be taxed from the 1st of April to the 31st of March from 2023, less anything he's already been declared before. So I don't think it's going to charge them anything else, Claire, but I'd need to sit down and look at the dates. So we'll make sure you've got plenty of information in time to advise your clients on that one.
Dawn Dudley says, I had the problem a few months ago. I think this is the one where they want to know what authority you've got, whether you can be a tax agent. All I had to do was send a copy of my practice license. They didn't ask for it when I sent my details to register, and it came back. I couldn't, and it couldn't be found. Anyway, that's how I got around it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dawn. I think it depends on how your ingenuity and the ability of the person on the other end of the phone or whatever.
I think for this particular member that we're dealing with at the moment has done all of that, and it still hasn't come back because unfortunately it's gone through in writing and HMRC are not answering anything that goes in by post. So I think that's the issue at the moment.
We've got one here from Sean. It says it's not only the tax agent that could be a problem, but also the fact that banks are not accepting our qualification for mortgages. Yes, Sean, Sean, I know we followed this one up with you already this week. I think you know, that is because we're not assurers, I think it is the actual term that you were given, because we're invited to give assurance that the accounts are correct. Now, some banks will accept it, some building societies will accept it. We have tried over the years, and we've had successes with some institutions and not with others. Then rules change, or somebody misses us off the list, and then we have to go back through it all again. There isn't really any sort of central source for us to do this other than the FCA. And as far as the FCA are concerned, at the moment, they're just saying, well, that's up to the individual lenders. And the problem is, as I say, that because it is this assurance, and particularly when a bank or building society takes out its own insurance against failure to pay, etc., then sometimes it's the insurance companies. We are doing whatever we can on this, but yeah, whatever we manage to succeed with for our members, they always want something else. So we're here to keep you moving forward. So yeah, we are working on this, and I think at some stage what we might have to do, and this was put forward by Santander, which I think is one of the banks you were talking about, Sean, is, do you have assurance as part of your qualification? Well, no, because we hadn't thought of that one, and we're sort of thinking about it now. I don't know what we can do, but we'll work on it, and whether or not that will be the key to Pandora's box or whatnot, I'm really not sure, but we'll have a go at that one.
And can I just add on that, Sean, and I know Sean will be aware of this, but for anybody else, that the issue may possibly be more linked in towards limited company accounts than sole trader accounts, because if you have a self-employed person for whom you've done a SAT return, they can actually download, I can't remember the number of the form, but there is a form which says that if HMRC has accepted the self-assessment tax return, regardless of who did it, then they will accept those figures for mortgages. So that may be more of an issue for limited company directors and shareholders than for sole traders. So it's worthwhile looking in that. Faye's come back with one on domestic reverse charge, my favourite subject, not. If anyone has filed their first quarter with the domestic reverse charge, all I would say, oh, thank you for this, Faye. All I would say after speaking to Sage Support, and the same for a friend using Xero, is to trust the configurations in your software. My client has had a refund, which is basically the VAT he hasn't been paid when the customer's paid. The boxes 1, 4 and 7 do look different than you may think, Faye. So thank you for that, Faye. As I say, I can only speak in theory on this because, as you know, I don't actually do this in reality anymore. So that's
I've got a couple of things just to mention here. Firstly, just to mention Dr. Philip Dunn, who was until this week a non-executive director of ICB. Philip and I and Jackie and several others here have worked together for a long time, even before ICB. I think I've been working with Philip for about 35 years. And he very kindly said the other day that it was because of one of the magazines that June and I used to publish that he first began to write, and since then he's been published worldwide. He's been very helpful to us on the board of ICB, but he is rather seriously ill at the moment. So quite rightly, he's stepped down from the board because he needs to concentrate on getting better. So we do wish Philip all the best and we will keep in touch, and we will make sure that we're there for you. I've noticed, I'm keen to watch what goes on social media. There's a lot of it there that I wouldn't give the time of day to, but one of our own, Nicola Payne, who you will know from Bookkeepers Hub in Cardiff, most of you, she's our branch chair down there, is prolific. But not only is she doing silly things, she's not one of these that's sitting there and just saying what the dog looks like and what she's had for dinner and all the rest of it. She's actually putting up some very good articles, some quite heavy stuff up there. So thank you, Nicola. That's brilliant, and that shows what a bookkeeper's all about. It's not just 2 and 2 is 4. It's really heavy stuff. So that's great. So look that up. Anybody that's interested, if you're into social media, Bookkeepers Hub, Nicola Payne. And she's good. I'll mention it to our team. We ought to do more with her ourselves. A couple of announcements here as well. Obviously, most of our members have a practice. That's why they come to us, but some of them are not. But we've got one of our members now, Tina Marshall. She's a former TrainingLink student from Scotland. She's just celebrated 8 years with, well, I think it's retro beamers, because it's something to do with BMWs, but it's spelt bimmers. So whether or not that's how you spell beamers in Scotland, I'm not sure. But anyway, retro beamers. So congratulations to Tina. Zoe Rhymes from down in Devon. She's just got a new job, actually working in an accountancy practice. That's VCCA. Still got a practice license, but I gather she's now got the full-time job. So congratulations to you. April Delderfield, who's just become a lecturer at Furness College. Congratulations, April. And Emma Jauncey. We've known Emma for many, many years, and she's just celebrated 6 years with Michelle Smith, who is up in Scotland. And her Michelle's practice is called Value Added Business Solutions. A lot of you will, particularly the Scottish contingent, but you'll know a lot about Michelle, because she is out and about everywhere. I should imagine everybody in Scotland knows her. She's always banging the bookkeeping drum and the small business drum and everything else. So it's nice to see some of our members getting more appreciation and ramping up the years. And if any of you have got anything happening, I mean, I have asked for pictures of new babies and all this sort of thing, but whatever it is, if you've got married or something that you want to talk about, which you think is fun, very happy just to mention it on here, because one of the big things about ICB is its social reach. But I think that's all I've got for the moment. Anything more for you, Jackie? Any more questions coming through?
No, I think we haven't got any questions. Paul, Nicholas said thank you. Message up saying thank you, Gary. No, I think we've covered all the questions. I've probably stunned you all into silence this afternoon, I think. You're all reeling.
Yeah, well, I've just reiterated again about the questionnaire that will be coming out. And it's really important you help us with that. We need to have the facts, and it's not something that we can pick up from the database at the moment. It's stuff which we're going to need your help with, because we need to get your interpretation of what goes on. Because the database, if we look at the number of people who are doing self-assessment tax, etc., it could actually give us a false figure. We don't want to get it wrong, because this is government we're talking about. This is your future, and it's the whole profession. Now, we are linking in with other professional bodies who've got problems with this as well. And I've had a conversation this morning with the CIOT and ATT, who are tax agents, obviously, and I'm waiting to hear what their concerns are and how they're handling it. But anyway, they're interesting times ahead. We've also agreed to sign up to a new fraud charter. I don't think I mentioned this before, but the professional bodies who are money laundering supervisors have now extended their remit at the request of government, and we put together a charter for anti-fraud campaigns, and we've signed up to it. We were actually the first people to sign up to it. I gather most of the bodies have now signed up. One or two have to put it through a slightly longer process than we do to get approval, but that will all be happening. we'll be building that. I mean, most of it is what you will know already, but there's slightly different terminology in places, and Lucy Brown will be sorting that out when she gets back to make sure that it is embedded properly into our professional conduct regulations. So a lot going on at the moment, Jackie, I think.
There's a lot going on, yes. If we thought the summer was going to be quiet, it's certainly not.
Yeah, I think a lot of stuff is put out at this time of year because I think not many people are around to pick fault with it. So they might slip a few things through. I don't know. I might be being sceptical.
Yeah, I couldn't possibly comment on that, Garry.
No, exactly. But I think that's good. So have we got any more on the?
No, I think we've covered everything. Thank you all for your questions and comments.
Oh, Nicola Payne says thank you. Well, thank you, Nicola. We keep an eye on things, and yeah, it's good to have a.
The one thing I would come back with is it hasn't. I don't think it's come out yet, but I think Tuesday week. I had a request for a technical Tuesday on partially exempt VAT, so I'm going to have a go at that Tuesday week. That will be coming out to you next week if anybody wants to book in for that. I'm going to have a go at attempting to dispel some of the myths about that. And I spoke to Ian Holloway the other day, who does the Wages Wednesday. He's not actually doing one this month in August, but he assures me he will be back in September with his next Wages Wednesday.
Yeah, I think we've mentioned before, Jackie, that you're getting such a broad spectrum of queries now for technical advice that we are going to be bringing in specialists. So we've got here, we're looking for somebody currently, we're talking to somebody about taxation. We've got somebody else who's going to look at HR and employment. So yeah, and we are still working on the business builder. I think a lot of things have slowed down a little bit because of end of July, August time. But you know, come mid to end of September, things are going to be ramped up a lot because there are a lot of things we want to do and a lot of things we have to do. But and we've just had quite a raft of new information through from HMRC on their rules and regulations for the people that they supervise. So we're going through that with a fine-tooth comb because most of what they do, we have to follow in some way or another. So we'll break that to you gently when we find out what it is. But I think that's good. Meanwhile, we've had rain here most of the day. It is sunny at the moment, but as you said earlier, Jackie, any minute now it could turn around and we could have anything from snow upwards.
Yeah,
we missed the big thunderstorms down here that we were promised in the south, which is good because it frightens the living daylights out of the dog. But yeah, so Jackie, thank you very much indeed. Thank you all for coming on and listening. Sorry we missed you last week, but we are slowly but surely making decisions about moving back to the office. Some of us will now be going back a couple of days a week. I don't think at this moment in time, at any rate, we'll do anything other than have a hybrid system because a lot of people have found that, you know, family life is a lot better when they work from home. We've also found that we can still get oodles of work out of everybody even when they're at home. So as long as ICB and the staff all get the best out of this, then you know we will be doing the best we can. So but whatever happens, your phones and emails will be answered wherever we are, and you shouldn't notice any difference at all. But so have a lovely weekend, everybody. Thank you all for your support, your continued support, and this is episode number 154, so we're mounting up the numbers there. And I noticed I got an email from somebody this morning, another organization, saying we've had a great idea, we're going to do a weekly webinar slot. So I don't know where they got that idea from. Never mind. we've been doing it for 2 years nearly. And Jackie, thank you as always, and we will see you again next week. Have a lovely weekend, everybody. Bye.
Yes, bye everyone, have a nice weekend.